Okay, welcome everybody. So this is Emotions Mentoring with Essential Oils, part 2, I've called it, because when we did our first one, there was a lot more depth that I wanted to go into. So because we have a lot of people registered that weren't on the first call, I'm also going to go back and revise a little bit about the essential oils as well that we did from the first one, just to kind of like make sure we've filled in all the gaps. And then we're going to dive in very deeply and go through some of the oils and emotions that are related with those oils. And then I will switch off the recording and we can go into a discussion with some ease. And yeah, so about ready to get started and jump in. So from the beginning of time, Mother Nature and human nature have coexisted. And what we're all finding at the moment is that adaptability that we've had as a species and as a being, an energy system that exists here on Earth, along with plants and animals. And the way to survive is to tune in and dive into that adaptability. So what are essential oils? Plants produce essential oils as a protection against environmental threats. And when we use essential oils, we receive those similar health benefits that the plants receive. They are a natural way to support the body. So there are 2 ways that I suggest using the essential oils for emotional support. And the first, and probably the most effective for emotional support, is to use the oils aromatically. So what we breathe in affects our mood, while it's also purifying the air around us, purifying our energy as well. Topically is also a great way to support our emotional system. So diluted, I always suggest, for sensitive skin, and apply it to the back of the neck, behind the ears, to pulse points, over the heart, and the soles of the feet are the best ways of accessing into our emotional bodies. So essential oils are powerful elixirs that can shift emotions. They can support us with our hormones, our responses to anxious feelings, and with our moods. But there are some things to consider, and we asked during the email that you would have received to bring along pen and paper, and if you have, you might want to jot things down as we're talking and take note of things. So things to consider are to determine what it is that's actually causing the stress. Learning to say no is a big one. Determining our personal boundaries, also a big one. Prioritising things that are the most meaningful for us, and detoxifying our life, improving our lifestyle habits, and minimising caffeine, sugar, alcohol. So when using essential oils, if hidden or denied memories are brought to the surface by the aroma, just allow it. Notice if the memory is accompanied by an emotion, acknowledge the emotion and where it is in the body that you sense it. Because where the mind goes, the energy flows. And sometimes within, I don't know, society today, we can be encouraged a little bit to change our mindset, be positive, these positive affirmations, all of those kind of things, which while they're purposeful, what we don't want to do is to just keep pushing things down and overlaying it with a sense of positivity, which we may not actually in all truth be feeling. So, you know, what I mean by that is that we need to feel it in order to heal it. We need to speak it as well in order for us to acknowledge it. So that can be, you know, that we speak it to ourselves, that we even write it and journal it to ourselves, or that we speak it to a trusted person, or we talk about it to a qualified health professional. However we do that, it is an important part of the process to not deny our memories and our emotions. The mental and emotional energies are stored in our cells. Cellular energy is energy that communicates through the whole body. And when we suppress or deny our emotions, we're denying the communication system of our bodies, and this impacts our physical, mental, and emotional well-being. And this will impact because our bodies know we can't lie to our bodies. We can't trick our bodies into feeling something. And this is where, you know, things like positive affirmations and all of that kind of thing only work if we really truly believe it. And I know that quite often we're told if we say it repetitively, we'll convince ourselves, almost hypnotise ourselves into believing what we're saying. And this actually could be true. But what I've found in my journey through emotions and my support with people over, you know, the last 20, 30 years since I've been working with the energy systems of the body and emotional releases and how they impact us in different ways and with different modalities, is that, you know, our mind is just a part of our communication system. So if we are thinking something, we are going to send that message to that part of the body, but that part of the body is also speaking to us as well. And if we have our emotions stored in our gut, that's where it's going to show up physically in some areas of concern around there. So if we acknowledge it, we listen to it, we try and tune into what it is that that message is telling us, and whereabouts in our lives and our emotions we can support ourselves to heal that and to release that emotional impact on our body, we are going to be able to move forward. The body is a self-regulating, self-healing unit, and essential oils are a physical medium that captures the essence of nature in a powerful elixir to support and regulate. So it's that having that physical medium. We are all energy. There is energy everywhere around us as our energy changes and flows through our body. Those things will begin to release emotions, as well as that change in our physical well-being as that happens. Detoxing our energy is also very important for our emotional well-being. So we know that toxins can cause inflammation and pain in the body, and just as that can happen, so an imbalance or negative energies can also include an emotional imbalance in the body. Almost all of our interactions with others occur in the non-physical energy field. That means that when somebody comes into our energetic field, we can pick up emotional responses. We can pick up and be sensitized and desensitized too sometimes by the emotional energy field of everything around us. Buildings, in nature, positive and negative, and people. And sometimes these exchanges or experiences, they can be draining, energy zapping, and they can cause our normal frequencies to drop, or to lift at times, of course, if it's positive. So moving forward, once a negative or draining situation is behind us, try not to revisit it. So this is the fine line, the balance, I guess, that we can come to, in that we acknowledge our emotions, we recognize the feeling, we can change the circumstances sometimes that are overwhelming or bringing in a experience that's going to cause an emotion. But we don't need to go back and revisit it. Once it's done, and we can let it go. And this is the magic of the essential oils, in that it can change an emotion very quickly, and it can release that emotion very quickly. So once we've done that with using the essential oils aromatically or topically, we don't need to go back to that situation and be there again and basically live there in that emotional feeling or emotional experience. Pure essential oils can be used to regain our emotional health. It's important that we do tell our stories, and by telling our stories, that we remember and emotionally connect to them. And this process is vital to support changing patterns of thoughts and emotional responses and reactions. We communicate and learn through the stories that we tell. We're always telling ourselves stories. We're always reacting events in our heads. And these stories that we tell ourselves determine our healthy or unhealthy emotional responses to events. Sometimes we can check in very gently and carefully and compassionately with ourselves and with our stories, and just see what is it that we are telling ourselves, and in what way we're telling ourselves. Are we repeating stories that are finished and done, and it's time to move on to the next chapter? Or are we telling the story to ourselves in a way that's going to help us to move forward? And often this brings us to this beautiful emotion of forgiveness. That is quite difficult at times for us to reach to. The forgiveness, especially for ourselves, is one of our biggest challenges. But then if we ask ourselves, why do we keep punishing ourselves for the past, the things that are done? Can we release this in order to set ourselves free? And when we ask ourselves that, it's always, of course, not accepting something that's not acceptable, or sometimes not accepting the behaviour of the person, or not even accepting the person that we are forgiving. But what we're doing for ourselves is, and it is for ourselves, and this is where sometimes it gets confused, is that we're forgiving in order to let ourselves go, so that we're not carrying this emotion from this event. And we may well be the ones that we do need to forgive, because we are all human. We are all going to do things that need forgiving throughout our life. So, if that little inner critic that sometimes pops into our head is telling you that something negative or critical about yourself, or it wasn't good enough, or you didn't do something in the right way at the right time, or forgot someone's birthday, I don't know, so many different things that go through our minds at times, then bringing out this beautiful forgive oil, this blend that's been scientifically and creatively curated in order to support us in our emotional response to forgiveness, can allow us to release things. And it can allow us to release things very quickly, and to bring us into that energy of compassionate forgiveness for ourselves, sometimes for others, and sometimes just for the circumstance that's happened in order to let ourselves go and set ourselves free, and to realise that we're not responsible for other people's behaviours. And peace is another search that we all have, that we're always looking for, our journey through life, searching for that holy grail of peace, of the self-acceptance, self-actualization, all of those kind of things. And the block sometimes to peace, or often to peace, is anger, which anger can be all consuming. It can tear us apart and make us unwell from inside and out. But that's not to say that we can't feel that. We do, and we do have anger, and anger comes up for us. And we do need to acknowledge it and allow it and release it. And it is part of our everyday life and living that we will feel anger. And anger in itself is not a bad thing, or not something to be pushed down and not allowed to happen. Anger is something, it's telling us something. So we can acknowledge it and find ways to release our anger that doesn't cause the exhaustion or further disruption within our emotional system, physical system, mental body, our energy system. And peace is something that can help us with this. It's beautiful peace blend that's been curated to help us to work through our anger and release it and let it go, and then move into that state of feeling more peaceful rather than feeling exhausted and drained. And releasing is sometimes a challenging thing to do, but wow, it can bring so much freedom to us. So some of the things we can ask ourselves is, what are we holding on to? And when we hold on to it, what emotions does it cause? And how does this holding on affect our energy? How is our energy at times when we're holding on to things that we could possibly let go of? And would we have more resilience, in our everyday life, if we were able to allow ourselves to grieve, allow ourselves to release, acknowledge the process in the grieving. And console is a beautiful blend for this. I find that it's one I use quite often, and sometimes, like with all of the emotions and emotional oils, I don't exactly know why I'm using it, or I don't exactly know what it is that I'm grieving for and what it is that I'm releasing. And at times, that's okay to just say, there is something. There is this day, a new day. So yesterday's gone. The ways of yesterday are not here anymore. I have to let go of that. My life is changing, as we're all changing every day. And within change, there is that small deaths and rebirths that we go through in our daily life and everyday life, and experience a lot of these in large, impactful ways, and in very small, subtle ways that, as I said, we don't even know what it is that is causing the grief or the emotional response, and that's okay too. And again, once it's shifted and gone, we don't need to go back and revisit it. We can just notice to ourselves, oh, I'm not feeling that weight, that weightiness, that cloud, that grief. I'm feeling a lot lighter. And this is how console works with our body and our emotions. So, building resilience. There are some questions that we can ask ourselves when we when we look at our stories and the stories that we're telling ourselves and to each other, and firstly, if there's an event, we can ask ourselves, does this affect every area of my life? So this emotional response that I'm having to this feeling, this sensation, this emotion, be it anger, be it grief, be it sadness, be it unpeacefulness, any of those kind of things. Does this affect every area of my life, or does it affect only a small part of my life? Is this due to my actions, or is this due to the actions of others? So this is not to apportion blame. This is just to tell ourselves the correct story, to tell ourselves our truth in our heart. Is it due to my action, or is it due to the actions of others? Because sometimes within our inner critic, we will apportion a certain amount of impact to events, to ourselves, that maybe we don't have any control over. We're not responsible for how other people behave. So we don't need to apportion that. We didn't magically bring about an occurrence that made other people behave in a certain way or not behave in a certain way, or any of that. So be clear with ourselves, and be clear with ourselves if it is due to our actions. And again, this is not to apportion blame, but this is to just say, okay, so if this is something that I bring about because of the way I act or react in certain situations, what can I do about that? Because we can change that. We can change our behaviour. We can change the way we act and interact. We cannot do it with other people's behaviours and actions and interactions. We can do it for ourselves. So in asking ourselves these questions, we can get a bit clearer and we can look a bit deeper into what is actually going on when emotional, when things happen emotionally. And another question to ask is, as we're telling ourselves a story, is, does this always happen to me, or does this rarely happen? So a really good question to ask, because some of the things we say to ourselves immediately that something happens is, oh, this always happens to me. And then we're self-creating that event to always happen to us. We're almost setting ourselves up that it's going to occur again and occur again and occur again. And sometimes it's not even the case. And when we're realistic about this, we can ask ourselves, well, does it really happen? Does it really just rarely happen? But because it impacts me so much, I'm considering that it always happens to me. And then we can build some reality into the basis of our story that we're telling ourselves, and begin to recreate the stories that we tell to ourselves in order to let them go. Because if, as we know, if we stay in the same story and we're telling ourselves the same story over and over and over and over again, we will not change. We won't go forward. We won't get out of that story and be able to create a new story for ourselves. So I went to a presentation by Dr. Adam Fraser, and he'd written a book called The Third Space, where he had done some research around the explanation style of our stories and that significant impact on our resilience in our emotional, physical and mental health and relationships. And basically that's what we're looking for. All of us are looking for, to have that resilience, because we can't protect ourselves and protect our energy field the whole time so that we walk through life with nothing impacting us. Things are going to impact us. We're in a human existence in the world where we're going to be impacted by people, by events, by all sorts of things, by the collective consciousness, by people's opinions of us, by our opinions of us, all of those kind of things. But it's that building of resilience that we have, that then we can look at it and we'll go, well, okay, is this my story? Is this someone else's story? Is someone projecting something? What's happening here? What's really, really happening here with this emotional responses that I'm having? And what he also talks about, and I'll just touch on this very briefly, because it's a whole workshop in itself, but he talks about giving ourselves this transitional space. And this is something that I've been working on for a little while now, and probably been working on for 25 years in some ways, when I would create transitions for children when I was working in family and children's development and children's services and things like that. And we would create what we would call the transitions, or the transitional spaces. So when they had to move from one thing to another thing, to create this transition between that, so they could gently move from one space to another space. Because as you know, if you change things suddenly for children, they can, become emotionally, disturbed by that or impacted by that. And we can also, as adults, of course, differently. With us, it's not necessarily going to be moving from one room to another room, or from lunchtime to sleep time. Obviously, we've progressed past that in most cases, I would think. But what we have in our day is we have a transition where all of us wear these multiple hats and these different hats in our lives. And we're mother, we're wife, we're caregiver, we work in whatever field that we work in, and sometimes that has multi-dimensions as well within the society that we live in today, with friend, with daughter, with sister, husband, brother. We're sometimes we're the boss, sometimes we're following the lead of someone who is managing wherever we're working, all of those kind of things. There's so many different things and transitions that we change through. We go to the shopping centre, we come home. As even in doing that, we can kind of have this energy exchange and this emotional response to that. So if we can just stop for a moment and just realise that we're going through a transition and a change, which can be a very small thing or a very large thing at times in our lives, where we're moving out of an area, or we're moving house, changing relationships, changing careers, having children growing up, any of those kind of things, parents getting older, siblings getting older, any of those kind of things, friends moving away, groups changing, all of those sort of things. And if we can give ourselves that space of time to go from here to there, in where we acknowledge that this is happening and we support ourselves to transition through. So it could just be a simple thing like we come home from work, we park the car, we go for a quick walk, then come inside, have a shower, change our clothes, and begin our day with the family, instead of just walking straight through the door, carrying and bringing all the stuff with us that has been in our work day, and trying to, transition instantly into the family situation, which is a very difficult thing to do. And it's something that we have created in our society, because naturally in days gone by, we just had the one role, and we didn't have so much this transitioning space from wearing one hat or being in one place. So taking a moment to think about that, and how we can be the boss of our own mood. And aroma, which we're talking about, the essential oils, can support us because they trigger that immediate response that then travels through the olfactory and limbic system to the right brain hemisphere. Plant aromas can elevate us beyond the basic instincts into higher functions of awareness. And that's where we're evolving as a species, and we've been evolving as a species. And because of our involvement as a species, we are also creating some challenging situations for us around emotions. And nature has always been here to support us, to ground us, to uplift us, to desensitize, to allow us to let go. And we have that really heart centre of nature in the essential oils. So transitioning, to improve our ability to transition from an emotional event, whether that be a daily occurrence like work or a drive home or something that's more impactful than that, towards balance, we need to assure ourselves first, make sure we secure ourselves and assure ourselves, give ourselves the moment and find the space to check in on the story that we're telling ourselves now. It's a story we used to tell ourselves, and maybe we'll pull up in the driveway from a busy day of work and we go, oh, I'm going to walk in and no, this is going to happen. When we revisit that story and we change that story and start to evolve into another story, and if we can let some of it go within the accuracy that we talked about, the optimism and the realistic expectations, and in a loving, supportive, held space, we can transition into the new change that's coming in, whether that be a new dynamic in our life, a move, a change in any of the areas that we've talked about. So this is how our emotional responses process a trigger. We see, we smell, taste, hear and feel and experience a thought or a memory, and then we interpret it. Our brain interprets what the signals are, and our brain, based on previous experience, then triggers an emotional response. And the brain compares its interpretation with older experiences and determines an appropriate emotional response, whether it's anger, fear, happiness, sadness, disgust, any of those kind of things. This is the emotional response that we have. And then that emotional response triggers the chemical response. The brain releases chemicals to match the emotion determined. And then our physical response, our body systems respond to chemical messages that are triggered by the brain. And diffusing the essential oils aromatically, as I said, is considered to be the best way, the most beneficial way of supporting our emotional responses. So diffusing essential oils sets the mood, the atmosphere, calms and soothes anxiety, promotes our healthy breathing responses, which our breathing will change as we have a response, an emotional response, our breathing will change. Diffusing essential oils also relaxes and sedates in the bedroom to promote sleep, creates a spiritual ambience to support meditation, yoga and mindfulness. So I put together some blends here to work with strengthening our resilience, strengthening ourselves. This one here seeks strength in self, to see and hear my story from shadows to light. So the first time we tell ourselves a story, we may be just looking at the shadow, the dark of it, and then we move through as we release and let things go, and then we begin to see the light in a situation. And by the time we get to that space, we can usually let part of the story go at least, and then we're telling ourselves a slightly different story. Maybe it's a more accurate story, maybe it's a less painful story. Maybe it's a story where we've brought some compassion to ourselves or the situation, the event, or to others involved. So this is one that I would use in the diffuser with these 4 oils, 2 drops of fennel to increase self-awareness, 3 drops of frankincense. Frankincense lets go of lower vibrations, brings truth into our story. A drop of ginger to own our responsibility to ourselves and the responsibility to let go and the responsibility to take those action steps, and 1 drop of lime. So lime has that, it's such an uplifting oil that even when we're feeling really so down and drained, it can instill some energy and inspiration into us and give us courage. Give us the courage we need to feel really from the heart. So this blend here, also again, thinking of the emotions and the emotional responses that we have, and that reflection. The light bounces off the waters of my emotional thoughts. Taking that moment when we think that we're going somewhere to process through our emotional responses, and working through that process in this way with spearmint. The spearmint accesses that which is light and to share in our voice and our words and our expression that light with clarity and confidence. Clary sage, which brings in clarity and courage to us if we need to make a correction. Vetiver, to stay present while working on my emotional responses, to keep us there very grounded in our emotional work that we're doing. And peppermint, which acts as a salve when we're really feeling deeply emotional, and it can view the teaching in the story, and it can support us in that moment that we really just need to be held. Rosemary, for reaching into the memories and the true knowledge of our story. And then with this blend here, so that one there, we've suggested to make that into a roller blend and to work with that through that emotional response to when we're working through an event or a transition. And transitioning from events to equilibrium. So there are times when things and events happen that are deeply more so than a daily occurrence. These are the major lifetime events that come for everybody in some ways in different times during their life. That really, really deeply shock us, I guess, and transition us from, we can almost like recognize the person we were before the event, the person that we were during the event, the person we become after the event. So at times like this, thyme oil, thyme oil is a very strong oil, so it's one that heavily diluted with fractionated coconut oil with the carrier oils, apply it topically, also to smell it. But with these progression through oils, I suggest that using them topically over those areas of the bodies that I talked about, like behind the ear, pulse points, soles of feet, over the heart. The heart center is where we feel a lot of our emotions at times in major events. It's going to affect us in some way over the heart. We might also feel it in the gut, we might feel it in the solar plexus, we might feel it somewhere else in our body. So wherever else we're in our body that we're feeling it, we can also support that there with the thyme oil, just being aware that it is a very strong oil and does need to be diluted. But thyme oil definitely reach very deeply into our emotional responses, and particularly in times of trauma or shock or sudden events or big life changes, in supporting and bringing courage. And as we transition from the negative responses that we'll naturally feel at those times to a place of more safety and more security that we can give to ourselves. And then lemongrass, which has the ability to dispel and release energetic imprints that we can hold on to for a long time in certain situations, so allowing them to release and let go. And Helichrysum, which is the oil of deeply held pain, and releasing that deeply held pain so that we no longer walk around as a walking wounded. Very, very intensely powerful oils. And tea tree. And tea tree creates a soft protection around our boundaries, and allows us to repair those boundaries, which when we suffer from deep wounds and deep trauma and huge life-changing events, then our boundaries are going to be impacted and broken away. And that allows us is maybe not the right term to use, but it puts us into a vulnerable place where energetically we can pick up so much easily other people's stuff, and our emotions will not be as easy to work through and let go and release, and then we can become physically unwell. And this is often what happens when we're going through an emotional situation or a traumatic event, because we are so impacted and so connected to our emotional body, our energy body, that our physical body just can't process it all through. So it's got to come out somewhere, and that's where it comes out, in our physical bodies. So in this way, we can help ourselves and support others. And I've worked with a couple of people that have come to me in very deeply life-changing, impactful or traumatic situations. And I've used these oils in a sequence, and I've tuned in intuitively to when and where to use them. Thyme oil has generally been the first one that I've gone to, though in one case I did go to lemongrass first and then thyme oil. So you can interplay with those, tuning into your intuition and your feelings of where to go to. You could create them in a roller blend and use them topically that way altogether, but I would suggest like tea tree might be the one that you go to first, and you support yourself very gently in creating those soft and nurtured boundaries, and then Helichrysum, and then lemongrass to let go, and thyme to bring you courage. So they are interchangeable in a way. That's why, I've put them up there as a progression through the oils. They will all go to where they're needed, very instinctively communicating within your emotional body to where they are most needed. So it's not like you can't go wrong. It's just a feeling into what you need in this present moment, which at a time when we're going through deep emotional trauma, sometimes that's the hardest time to really support ourselves. So, that's clearly when we actually need someone to come in and take care of us in a way, and to say, are you using your oils? Are you hydrating? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you eating enough food? Or we might be doing this for somebody else. But these 4 oils will be really, really powerful at times when that occurs. And then, of course, there are times in our lives and times in our emotional life where we do need to realise that there's something or someone or some event that we really need to untie the cords to and let go of the connections to the old wounds, so that we don't keep pulling back in that story and that energy of that story and that energy of that feeling and carrying it with us years after it's done, it's come, it's caused, it's taught, it's changed, whatever has happened through the occurrence of that event, and to just realise that it's time sometimes to let it go. So marjoram is, again, it's a very gentle, soft way of releasing stored up old hurts. So it will just softly allow our muscular tension that we're holding around the cellular memory to just release enough to be able to let things go. Frankincense is an oil that one blends with all the other oils, but also is a very powerful, I want to say spiritual oil, but without putting a connotation on it that, you know, it is used a lot in traditional ceremonies and spiritual practices, religious ceremonies, all of those kind of things. But it's spiritual in the essence of it will bring in your truth, and it will free your truth, your light, and it also will help the energy to flow. I mean, frankincense is known for its ability to bring back balance when there's an overbalance of inflammation, for instance, which we know is the physical cause of pain in the body, which could well have sometimes been exacerbated by an emotional response in the body. So frankincense is a beautiful one to use. And patchouli has this beautiful energetic emotional ability to have us to feel present in our body, to acknowledge the messages and memories, and to appreciate and acknowledge our physical body. And so while we're working through our emotions, our vehicle that we have to carry us through life, our body, is often impacted by our emotions and our emotional responses. So in acknowledging that, and in acknowledging that our body is still going to have to try and function in its normal way, and while it's been challenged and clogged up with all these emotional wounds and emotional responses. So patchouli helps us to stay present in the body and acknowledge the body, and to give the body and feed the body and give the body what it needs at the time that we're going through our emotional stuff. Oregano, again, like thyme oil, extremely potent oil. And because of its potency, it is one that needs to be heavily diluted with a fractionated coconut oil, a carrier oil, when using it topically on the body. But it is such a powerful oil to bring us back to alignment and help us to support and let go of limiting beliefs, to let go of relationships that no longer serve us, and to let go of judgments as well, judgments for selves, judgments for others, judgments for the situations, all the judgments that tie us into holding on to the cords and connections long past when we should let them go. And then juniper berry, which bring light, brings light to us in all aspects of us. So juniper berry is a great one to use at night time. At night time is when it will do its work, and it will help us to replenish, regenerate our body, and also release things in our dream state, in our subconscious mind as well as in our conscious mind. So these 5 oils, very, very powerful, working together with untying cords and connections to old wounds. This blend, roller blend, I'm suggesting to just bring in self-acknowledgement and to be the witness to our own story and choose to live in the present. So we're acknowledging our story, we're being the witness to our story, and sometimes for the first time, because you know, culturally, socially, we're often just because of our survival as well, our survival instincts, we're having to just go forward and cope and exist and survive. And so I've got to work, I've got to do this, I've got to do that for that person, and this for this, and this is what I have to do today. So I haven't got time to sit with my story. But once we do sit with our story and we witness our story ourselves and choose to be there in the present moment of where this story fits in now. So we've done all this work that we've talked about before, and acknowledging and taking responsibility, letting go, if we can, with compassion to some of the things that we've held on to. And then sit with the story that we have now in the present. And Arbor Vitae is a beautiful oil for engaging spiritual awareness, and what it also does is it brings all those fractured parts of ourselves, but all the work that we've been doing, it will help us to bring all those parts that we really are now back into ourselves and our being. And basil opens our minds and allows that renewal to come in. The bergamot is our self-love, our self-expression, to love ourselves without judgment. We've done the work now, and we can let go of that judgment, that story. And wintergreen, surrendering control so that we can be free to be. So surrendering the thought process that we can control situations that are basically outside of our control, and we can just be in the flow of where we are and be who we are. Sleep is extremely important for our emotional well-being, and I can't do an emotions class without mentioning sleep. I love these oils, and these oils are included in our what's called now, our sleep wellness box anyway. Lavender Peace, a beautiful one to diffuse. Lavender as well, a gorgeous one to diffuse or put on the pillow, place on the body when you're getting ready to bed. Vetiver, soles of the feet, a good place. Diffuse it as well. Add the vetiver cedarwood to the diffuser. Sandalwood, do a little mindfulness meditation and place some just under your nose or around that area to breathe it in. As you're sleeping, clary sage, I would put perhaps across the brow line and switch off the mind with that. Develop an evening routine that incorporates self-care and prepares the body for a restful night's sleep. So the mind can also repair as well while the body's repairing. So here's our beautiful Bedtime Bliss Wellness Box, which has the Lavender Peace, the Peace Touch, Balance, Cedarwood, Vetiver, fractionated coconut oil. And for this month, and for people that are opening a wholesale account, it includes the wholesale membership, and they'll receive a free lemon eucalyptus. The other oils we've talked about are these gorgeous oils, which include Console, Peace, Forgive, Cheer, Motivate, and passion. And for opening a wholesale account this month, a free lemon eucalyptus comes with that. And we've put together some of these gorgeous blends that we've talked about in a package, which is quite discounted, and it does include the wholesale membership. So this blend here, seeking strength, see and hear my story from shadows to light, with fennel, frankincense, ginger, and lime. The 15 ml fennel, ginger, and lime, and you'll receive a 5 ml frankincense and a 15 ml eucalyptus free. It includes the wholesale membership. This is another gorgeous kit. We've talked about the reflections kit. Spearmint, clary, sage, vetiver, peppermint, and rosemary. And with this kit that we've put together, you will receive the 15 ml peppermint free and the lemon eucalyptus free. For this one here, we have put together the Arbor Vitae basil, bergamot, and wintergreen. The wintergreen we will gift for free, and you'll also receive the lemon eucalyptus for free with this kit. So this larger kit here is a combination of those oils we've used in the last two journeys that I've talked about. So 10 oils here, a beautiful value for $227 for these oils that you will receive free: the 5 ml frankincense, 5 ml oregano, and the lemon eucalyptus. So some gorgeous oils there. And if you'd like to discuss any of it further, here are some ways to connect through the Essentials for Life Facebook page. Drop down on the services menu, and you can book into a chat under the How We Can Best Serve consult appointment. You can send a messenger, a Facebook messenger, or email us at essentialsforlife@westnet.com.au. So any questions at all about any of the oils or anything that we've talked about on the class, please reach out. We'd love to hear from you. So just to kind of finish off today, these are the things that it is never too late to reclaim. So your body, your tenderness, the earth, your dream, your roots, your story, your strength, your perception, and your heart. They have always belonged to you. So thank you everybody for joining me. And I'm just going to switch out of my share screen. So thank you everyone for joining us. And just to wrap up and to remind you that whether you're with us live today or you're watching this recording back, please feel welcome to reach out through any of those mediums that I shared and send a message if you'd like to know any more, or if you would like to know how to best serve with these oils. I do recommend this gorgeous emotions kit, which we talked about, which comes with all those beautiful, beautiful oils of the peace and forgive and the console, as well as 3 others: motivate, fear, and passion. And these are really potent, very high frequency, energetic blends to support us at times in a really, really powerful way. So that kit is $310, which includes a wholesale membership with doTERRA, and for this month of July and also for August, you receive the lemon eucalyptus for free, and the lemon eucalyptus gorgeous oil that is very cleansing and uplifting as well. The other oils that we've shared, the other blends that we've shared with you before moving through and just enhancing your life and your emotional well-being, your purpose, and strengthening yourself as we work through any of the emotional events or challenges that we have showing up for us. We have those gorgeous blends that are put together, and we've put together kits that have got huge savings for you. So starting out with the one that is $135.50, which includes wholesale membership and then the combination of those 10 oils from 2 different blends that we put together, plus with both of those you get the lemon eucalyptus free. So however we can support you, these oils are amazing. And as we've just been talking in the chat in the break just a few minutes ago, that consistency is key and intuition is amazing, and everybody's body is different. All of our experiences, our life journey, our path, it's all unique and individual. And so it's really beneficial for you to take this opportunity to talk with someone who wants to hear your story and support you all the way through. And I'm happy to do that at any time that you need or want. So have a gorgeous day, and I'm hoping you're enjoying some of the beautiful sunshine that's out there today after all the amazing storm, but cleansing rains that we've had. So I'll talk to you all soon. Thanks for joining us.